A Father's Impossible Choice. Subscribe, like, and comment below to let me know what you think of this story. His eyes. They were his son's eyes. And that laugh, the exact same way of laughing. Arthur Kane felt the ground disappear from beneath his feet as he saw the blond boy smiling in the airport lobby, a perfect echo of how his own son, Theodore, used to smile before he vanished. 3 years of silence, guilt, and relentless searching, until a tiny airplane keychain hanging from a flight attendant's bag opened an old wound and an unthinkable possibility. David, age 5. Son of Chloe. Or was he Theodore, the child Serena swore she had lost? At the cafe table, the coffee grew cold as a burning truth ignited between two strangers. What if fate had hidden his son in the arms of the one woman who would love him as he deserved? Now, a father's pain, a mother's fear, and a child's love are about to collide in an impossible choice. Because it's not enough to discover the truth. You must decide what to do with it. This story will shake you to your core and remind you that sometimes what is lost is not gone forever. It was just being loved in silence by another soul. JFK's Terminal 4 hummed with the constant murmur of voices, boarding announcements, and the drag of suitcases. For most, it was just a transit point, but for Arthur Kane, it had become a temple of grief. 3 years earlier. In this very lobby, his son Theodore had disappeared without a trace. Arthur adjusted the knot on his Italian silk tie, his gaze sweeping over the frenetic terminal. At 42, he still had the athletic build of a man who swam religiously, but his green eyes carried a weight no physical exercise could alleviate. His salt and pepper hair contrasted sharply with his dark locks, the marks of a life aged prematurely by tragedy. "Mr. Kane, the car is waiting." His personal driver interrupted his thoughts. "Cancel the trip, David. I won't be going to London today." "But sir, the investors' meeting." "Tell them I had an emergency. My assistant will reschedule everything." David nodded, not questioning. He knew his boss's moods, especially when Arthur decided, as he had today, to visit the airport for no apparent reason. The driver discreetly walked away, leaving Arthur alone with his ghosts. 3 years, 2 months, and 17 days. That was the exact time since Serena, his ex-wife, tearfully recounted how she had lost sight of Theodore for just a second. A 2-year-old who had simply vanished into thin air. Security cameras, conveniently malfunctioning that day, recorded nothing conclusive. Confused employees, contradictory testimonies, and the police eventually closed the case after months of inconclusive investigation. Theodore Kane was presumed dead. But Arthur never believed it. He walked to the main hall cafe and ordered an espresso. There, sitting at a corner table, he allowed himself to remember Serena. Beautiful, sophisticated, captivating, and, as he would discover much too late, a magnificent actress. Initially, she played the role of the devastated mother convincingly. Her face appeared in newspapers and magazines, with perfect tears streaming down her immaculately made-up face as she pleaded for her son's return. Just months later, with Theodore presumed dead, Arthur began to notice the signs. Serena's disguised relief, the speed with which she overcame her grief, the lapses in her story, and then the messages found on her phone, conversing with her lover about how she was finally free. Free, as if a child were a prison. The divorce was swift and brutal. Arthur left her penniless, mobilizing the best lawyers in the country. Serena disappeared from the world, likely supported by some new wealthy lover, and he immersed himself in work, expanding the Kane Hotels chain around the globe, accumulating more millions that failed to fill the void in his heart. "Excuse me, is this chair taken?" A feminine voice broke his contemplation. Arthur looked up, ready to dismiss the intruder, but something stopped him. She was a redhead with delicate freckles scattered across her face, wearing a navy blue flight attendant uniform. Her ID identified her as Chloe Evans. "Please have a seat." He gestured to the empty chair. "Thanks. It's crowded today." She smiled politely, placing her cup of tea on the table. "I'm sorry to interrupt your moment of peace." There was something about her smile that seemed genuine, a rarity in the world of falsehoods Arthur inhabited. "No problem," he replied curtly, with no intention of prolonging the conversation. But then he noticed something hanging from her bag, a small airplane keychain with the name David written in child's handwriting. "Is that for your son?" he asked, surprising himself with the question. Chloe's face instantly lit up. "Yes, David is 5. He made this keychain in kindergarten for me to take on all my flights." She handled it with affection. "He says that way I'll never get lost in the sky." 5 years old. The age Theodore would be now. "He must miss you when you travel," Arthur commented, a familiar pang in his chest. "He does, but he understands. It's just the two of us. And my mom, who's not well. He already knows his mom needs to fly to bring money home." She took a sip of her tea. "It's complicated, but we managed just fine." Her frankness disarmed him. There was no artifice there, just the honesty of a working woman. The opposite of Serena. "And you?" she asked. "Are you waiting for a flight too?" "Actually, I just canceled a trip." "Oh, I see." "Yes, I have a hotel chain. I was supposed to be boarding for London." Her eyes widened slightly. "Kane! You're Arthur Kane of the Kane Hotels." He nodded, bracing himself for the typical change in behavior his name usually provoked. The sudden interest, the flattery, the attempt to impress. But Chloe just smiled. "My mom used to work as a housekeeper at one of your hotels in Puerto Vallarta many years ago. She always said the treatment of the staff was excellent." Arthur felt moved by the unexpected comment. It wasn't about his money or power, but about something that truly mattered to him, the ethical legacy his father had built and he maintained. "I'm glad to hear that. How is she?" "Advanced Alzheimer's." Chloe's voice faltered slightly. "We live together. I have a caregiver for when I'm on a flight, but, well, it's tough sometimes." She shrugged, but there was strength in the gesture. "Good days, bad days. We keep going." A flight announcement echoed through the sound system, and Chloe checked her watch. "I need to go. I have a Cancun-Dallas flight in 40 minutes. She stood up, adjusting her uniform. "It was a pleasure, Mr. Kane." "Arthur," he corrected, surprising himself again. "You can call me Arthur." "Then, it was a pleasure, Arthur." Chloe smiled, and there was a light in that smile he hadn't seen in a long, long time. "Good luck with your hotels." He watched her walk away, an elegant figure amidst the crowd. Something about that brief encounter had left him unsettled. Perhaps the mention of her son, perhaps her genuine simplicity, or perhaps it was just the contrast with his world of glass and steel, where relationships were measured in contracts and prenups. As he walked toward the exit, a commotion caught his attention. In the main hall, a boy was saying goodbye to his mother with hugs and kisses. He was a blonde child, about 5 years old, holding an elderly woman's hand as he waved to someone. Arthur stopped, mesmerized by the scene. The boy let out a crystalline laugh that resonated through the terminal, and then, for a fleeting instant, he turned his face in Arthur's direction. The world stopped. That smile, those eyes, the way the right corner of his mouth, exactly like Theodore? The name escaped in a whisper. Arthur's heart hammered against his ribs. He took a few steps forward, pushing through the crowd. The boy was now walking away, holding the woman's hand. Arthur tried to catch up, but a group of tourists blocked his path. When he finally got through, The boy and the woman had disappeared. Frantically, he ran to the information desk. "The boy! The blonde boy who was here with a woman! Where did they go?" The receptionist, confused by his agitation, only pointed to the exit doors. Arthur ran, but outside he saw only a line of taxis pulling away. No sign of the boy or the woman. He went back inside, his heart still racing. Was he going crazy? Seeing Theodore in every blonde child? It had happened before, in the first months after the disappearance. His therapist called it grief projection, but this time felt different. There was something so incredibly familiar about that face. That's when he noticed something on the floor near the bench where the boy had been sitting. A small paper airplane made from a colored sheet of paper. Arthur picked it up, carefully unfolding it. Inside was a child's drawing. 3 stick figures, a tall one with red hair, another tall one with white hair, and a small one in the middle. Below, written in a child's scrawl, Mommy, Grandma, and David. David. The name hit Arthur like a lightning bolt. The flight attendant, the keychain, the 5-year-old son. With trembling hands, he pulled his phone from his pocket and dialed his head of security. "Marcus, I need you now." His voice sounded strangely calm. "I want everything you can find on a flight attendant named Chloe Evans. Works for an American airline. She has a 5-year-old son named David." Across town, in a cozy Brooklyn apartment, Chloe walked in, exhausted after a long day of flying. The apartment was small, but welcoming. 2 bedrooms, an open living room and kitchen, decorated with simplicity and a lot of love. Photos of David covered an entire wall. His first bath, his first birthday, his first day of kindergarten. "We're home," announced Mrs. Evans, who was her mother's caregiver, and, on flight days, David's as well. "Mommy!" The boy ran, launching himself into her arms. He had blonde hair that fell over his intense blue eyes, and a smile that lit up the room. "Did you bring a present?" Chloe laughed, lifting him into her arms. "I did, you little opportunist. A small handmade keychain from Mexico, look." David took the little souvenir, examining it with childish fascination. "Thanks, I'm going to put it in my collection." "How was the day?" Chloe asked Mrs. Evans, as she headed to her mother's room. "Quiet. She slept a lot." David was good, except he lost his little paper airplane at the airport. "He lost it? The one you made last night?" David made a sad face. "I was waiting for you, but it fell. Grandma couldn't pick it up because her back hurts." "No problem, my love. We'll make another one." In the small, airy room, Mrs. Evans slept peacefully. At 72, her face still retained the features of the beauty Chloe had inherited. Her completely white hair framed a serene face that rarely recognized her daughter on bad days. Today, fortunately, seemed to be a good day. Chloe adjusted the blankets and kissed her mother's forehead, who opened her eyes slowly. "You're back, honey." Mrs. Evans smiled, recognizing her. "I'm back, Mom. I always come back." After settling her mother and saying goodbye to Mrs. Evans, Chloe prepared a simple dinner for herself and David. The boy talked non-stop about his day at kindergarten, about his new friend, about how he wanted to be a pilot when he grew up. "More pasta, Captain?" she offered, playing along. "Yes, ma'am," David replied with a military salute. Watching her son eat, Chloe felt that familiar wave of gratitude and fear. Gratitude for having him in her life. Fear that one day, someone might take him away. She would never forget that rainy morning in Terminal 1, when she found an abandoned baby in the women's restroom, wrapped in an expensive coat with a small teddy bear beside him. No identification. No clue as to who had left him there. As a flight attendant, Chloe followed protocol. She took the child to airport security, reported the incident, and gave a statement. Days passed. No one claimed the baby, No missing child announcements. No police reports. The case was classified as an abandonment. And Chloe, who visited the child daily at the foster home, felt her heart swell every time the little one smiled when he saw her. After months of bureaucracy, psychological evaluations, and hearings, she first obtained provisional custody. Then, a definitive adoption. She named him David, the beloved, because that's how she felt when she held him for the first time. Unconditionally loved by those blue eyes that looked at her with absolute trust. "Mommy?" David's voice brought her back to the present. "Why are you crying?" Chloe hadn't even noticed the tears rolling down her face. "It's nothing, my love. Mommy's just tired from the flight. Don't cry." He extended his small hand, touching her face gently. "I'm going to take care of you." And those simple words, spoken with such sincerity, only intensified her emotion. How could she explain to a 5-year-old the fear that consumed her, the fear that one day someone would appear to take away what she loved most in the world? Chloe hugged her son tightly, inhaling the smell of his shampooed hair. "I love you so much, you know." "I know," David replied with the simplicity of children. "I love you this much." And he opened his arms as wide as he could. Later, after putting David to bed and checking on her mother, Chloe sat on the small apartment balcony. She thought about the man she had met at the airport, Arthur Kane, one of the richest businessmen in the country, owner of a luxury hotel chain that spanned 4 continents. There was a sadness in those green eyes, a profound sorrow that all the money in the world didn't seem capable of healing. For a moment, she felt a strange connection to him. 2 solitary souls in a crowd. Chloe laughed at herself. What a silly thought. They belonged to completely different worlds. Him, to marble halls and multi-million-dollar business meetings. Her, to the narrow aisles of airplanes and the daily struggle to support her small family. Tomorrow would be just another day, another flight, another trip away from David, to ensure he had everything he needed. What Chloe didn't know was that at that exact moment, a private investigator was digging into her life on Arthur Kane's orders, and that fate, with its relentless irony, had just intertwined their lives in a way neither of them could have ever imagined. What would you do if you were in Chloe's shoes? Let me know in the comments. The headquarters of Kane Enterprises occupied the top 10 floors of a skyscraper in Midtown Manhattan. From his penthouse office, Arthur watched the city below, that gray Gwinnett that never slept. The city stretched as far as the eye could see, millions of lives connected by a labyrinth of concrete and asphalt. How many stories were unfolding down there? How many secrets? "Mr. Kane, Marcus is here." His secretary's voice came over the intercom. "Send him in." Marcus Silva was a discreet, middle-aged man, a former police commander who now ran security for Kane Enterprises. His specialty, however, went beyond corporate protection. He was the best private investigator Arthur knew. "I brought what you asked for." Marcus placed a folder on the glass table. Arthur sat down, opening the folder with slightly trembling hands. Inside were the details of Chloe Evans' life. Born in Cancun, 34 years old, flight attendant for 12 years, single mother of a 5-year-old son, responsible for a mother with Alzheimer's. Residence, a mortgaged apartment in Brooklyn. Financial life, modest but stable. "And the boy?" Arthur asked. His throat dry. "That's the interesting part." Marcus pointed to the second page of the report. David Evans, legally adopted by Chloe after being found abandoned at JFK Terminal 1 in March 2022. March 2022. Exactly when Theodore disappeared. There are records of the abandonment, police reports, images, all according to protocol. Chloe found the baby in the women's restroom. She took him to airport security. No one ever claimed the child. After the legal period, she obtained custody. And that didn't raise any suspicions. A baby abandoned right when there was a disappearance at the same airport? Different cases. Different areas. Theodore's disappearance was reported in Terminal 4, where your ex-wife was to board for Europe. The baby was found in Terminal 1, the domestic zone. And you know how bureaucracy is. One department rarely communicates with another. Arthur closed his eyes for a moment, trying to process it all. Was it possible that his living son was being raised by a flight attendant on the other side of town? I need concrete proof, Marcus. Recent photos of the boy. And I want a DNA test. How do you plan to get the genetic material? Leave that to me. Arthur stood up, walking to the window. But first, I want you to get all the security camera footage from that day. All of it. And I want to know where Serena was before she reported the disappearance. Marcus nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. I'll need a few days. Do it in one. Use all the resources necessary. After Marcus left, Arthur remained motionless, looking out at the Manhattan skyline. If David was truly Theodore, if Serena had deliberately abandoned her own son, what would that mean? And more importantly, what would he do about it? The son he thought was dead might be alive, loved, and raised by a woman who found him by chance. A woman who, unlike Serena, seemed to have dedicated her life to him. The weight of that possibility was overwhelming. Arthur took the small paper airplane he had found at the airport and unfolded it again. The childish drawing, so innocent, so full of love, seemed to burn in his hands. Mommy, Grandma, and David. A family. A real family. Built with genuine love. Did he have the right to disrupt that? Chloe was buckling David into his car seat, getting ready to take him to kindergarten, when she noticed a man watching them from across the street. Tall, well-dressed, disguised behind sunglasses. Something about him triggered her protective instincts. David, wait here for a moment. Don't get out of the car. She locked the doors and walked purposefully toward the stranger, who immediately pretended to be on his phone. Can I help you? Her voice was firm, not betraying the fear she felt. The man seemed surprised by her direct approach. Excuse me. You've been watching my son for almost 10 minutes. Would you care to tell me what you're doing? I think there's a misunderstanding, ma'am. I'm just waiting for a friend. At this specific address. In front of my building. The man hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. Look, I'm going to call the police. Chloe pulled out her phone. That won't be necessary. A familiar voice sounded behind her. Chloe turned and found Arthur Kane walking toward her. He was wearing an impeccable suit, but his eyes revealed sleepless nights. What? You? She took a step back, confused. What is going on here? You can go, Marcus. Arthur dismissed the man, who nodded discreetly and walked away. Then he turned to Chloe. We need to talk. Are you following me? Spying on my son? Indignation replaced her initial confusion. It's not what you think, isn't it? Then why is there a man secretly taking pictures of my son? What do you want from us? Before Arthur could reply, a small voice came from inside the car. Mommy, we're going to be late for kindergarten. Chloe looked at David, then at Arthur, panic swelling in her chest. Stay away from my son, she whispered, her eyes blazing. I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but it ends here. Chloe, please. Arthur took a step forward. Just 5 minutes. It's important. Important? She laughed, incredulous. Important is my son's safety. Important is that he gets to kindergarten on time. Important is not having strangers taking pictures of him, like he's some kind of... Her voice broke. Something in Arthur's gaze stopped her. It wasn't a threat or malice. It was pain. A pain so deep and familiar that it momentarily disarmed her. 5 minutes, she finally relented. At the corner coffee shop, after I dropped David off at school. Thank you. The relief in his voice was palpable. Chloe returned to the car, forcing herself to smile normally at David. "Who was that man, Mommy?" the boy asked, curious. "Just a work colleague." She started the car, trying to control the shaking in her hands. "Let's go, or Mrs. Miller will be mad we're late." During the entire drive to kindergarten, Chloe couldn't stop thinking. What would a billionaire like Arthur Kane want from her? From David? Was this some kind of harassment, a mistake, or something worse? Terrifying possibilities multiplied in her mind. The coffee shop was small and cozy, with only half a dozen tables. Arthur was already there when Chloe arrived, sitting in a discreet corner, his hands wrapped around an untouched coffee cup. She approached cautiously, still trying to make sense of what was happening. "I'm here. 5 minutes." She sat down across from him, tense. "Why are you following me?" Arthur took a deep breath, as if searching for the right words. 3 years ago, my son Theodore disappeared at JFK Airport. He was 2 at the time. Chloe frowned, confused by the unexpected turn of the conversation. "I'm so sorry, but what does that have to do with me?" "It was in March 2022, Arthur continued, watching her reaction closely. "The same month you found an abandoned baby at Terminal 1. Chloe's blood ran cold. Her breathing became shallow, and she felt the room spin. "What are you implying?" "I'm not implying anything. I'm asking if it's possible that the boy you adopted is my son." "No." She shook her head, the denial instinctive. "No, that's absurd. David was abandoned. I followed all the legal protocols. The adoption was legitimate, supervised by a judge. No one was looking for him." "What if someone wanted it that way?" Arthur asked softly. "If someone deliberately abandoned him, making sure he wouldn't be found, who would do something so horrible?" "Serena, my ex-wife." Bitterness tinged his voice. The woman who reported Theodore missing. Chloe felt lost, as if the ground had been pulled from under her feet. It couldn't be. David was her son, her little miracle. "Why are you doing this?" Her voice trembled. "Why now, after 3 years?" "Because I only just found a clue. When I saw your son at the airport, he has the same smile, Chloe, the same look." Arthur pulled a photo from his wallet. A blonde baby with incredibly blue eyes, smiling for the camera. "This is Theodore." Chloe looked at the photo, and the world stopped. The resemblance was undeniable, but it couldn't be. She didn't want it to be. "That's not enough." She returned the photo, fighting her panic. "Lots of blonde kids look alike." "Agreed. That's why I suggest a DNA test." "Never." The answer was immediate, visceral. "David is my son, my legally adopted son. I will not allow you to show up out of nowhere to disturb him with stories about biological parents and abandonment." "I understand your reaction." Arthur kept his voice calm. "But think about it. If he really is Theodore, don't you think he deserves to know the truth? That I deserve to know?" "Truth?" Chloe laughed bitterly. "What truth? That he was abandoned like trash? That his biological mother didn't want him? What kind of truth is that for a 5-year-old? The truth that his father never stopped looking for him. That he never stopped loving him for a single second." Something in the sincerity of those words struck Chloe. She saw for the first time beyond the imposing businessman. She saw only a desperate father, clinging to a faint hope. "If I agree to this," she spoke slowly, each word weighing like lead. "If I allow this test, what happens next? Are you going to try to take David from me? Drag me into a legal battle I can't possibly win against your expensive lawyers?" "No." Arthur's response was firm. "Regardless of the result, I will not do anything that harms David's well-being. He is clearly loved and well cared for. Any decision will be made with him first in mind." "Words, just words. Then let me prove it with actions." He leaned forward. "Let's do this. You choose how the test is done. You choose the lab, the method, everything. I'll pay for it, but you'll have complete control of the process. And before any results are even delivered, we'll sign an agreement, drafted by the lawyer of your choice, guaranteeing that I will not take any legal action without your consent, regardless of the outcome. Chloe stared at him, searching for any sign of falsehood. But all she saw was sincerity, and that same deep pain she had recognized before. Why are you doing it this way? You could just sue me. You have the resources for it. Because there have already been too many victims in this story, Arthur replied simply. You took care of him when no one else did. That means a great deal to me. Silence settled between them, heavy with possibilities and fears. I need to think about it, Chloe finally said, standing up. This is too much. I understand. Arthur also stood. Take all the time you need. Here's my card with my personal number. When you're ready, or if you need anything at all, call me directly. She took the card with trembling fingers and put it in her purse. One last thing, Arthur added hesitantly. I know I have no right to ask this, but can I see him again? From a distance, without interacting, just see him? The vulnerability in that request broke something inside Chloe. For a moment, she imagined herself in his place, years of believing her child was dead, only to discover he might be alive, so close and yet so far away. Tomorrow, at 4, she said in a low voice. At the Brooklyn Heights Promenade. We'll be there. Thank you. The gratitude in his voice was genuine. Chloe left the coffee shop feeling as if she were carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. If David was truly Theodore, if she had to share him, how would she survive that? The following days were a whirlwind for both of them. Arthur dove into the investigation, while Chloe oscillated between denial and acceptance. At the promenade, as promised, she took David to play. Sitting on a bench, she pretended not to notice Arthur watching from a distance. She saw his eyes fill with tears when David ran, laughing the same way Theodore laughed in the photos. She saw his body tense, resisting the impulse to run to the boy. That genuine pain moved her more than she cared to admit. At night, after putting David to bed, Chloe went through her photo albums. The first few days with him, as a baby. His first word, Mommy. His first steps. His first birthday, with a simple cupcake, and Mrs. Evans still lucid enough to sing Happy Birthday. Christmases, trips to the park, the small moments that built their life together. Was it possible that all of this was based on a lie? That another woman had deliberately abandoned that perfect creature? The doubt consumed her. Meanwhile, Arthur received Marcus's first findings. Recovered footage from security cameras showed something disturbing. Serena, disguised in a janitor's uniform, carrying something small, wrapped in a blue blanket, entering Terminal 1, and leaving without the bundle in her arms. The timing was impossible to ignore. Minutes later, she appeared in Terminal 4, hysterical, reporting Theodore's disappearance. The plan was now crystal clear. Serena had abandoned her own child, making sure he was far enough away to not be associated with the disappearance she would report next. Why? Investigations into her bank accounts revealed suspicious transfers abroad shortly before the incident. Serena planned to flee the country without the child. Theodore was a burden, an obstacle to her new life. And Arthur, with his obsessive love for the boy, an even bigger problem. In the solitude of his penthouse, Arthur fought off a devastating rage. How could anyone do that to their own child? With what coldness had Serena executed that plan, willing for everyone to believe Theodore was dead? His phone rang, interrupting his dark thoughts. It was Chloe. I agree to the test, she said simply, her voice exhausted. But with my conditions. All of them. Done, Arthur replied. And I want to see the proof you have. All of it. Tomorrow, at my office, or wherever you prefer." A heavy silence followed. When Chloe spoke again, her voice was broken. "If he really is your son, what happens to us?" The question hung between them, heavy with fear and uncertainty. Arthur closed his eyes, feeling the weight of that decision. "I don't know for sure," he answered honestly. "But I do know that you are the mother he knows, the mother who loved him when he needed it most. That will never change, no matter what the test shows." As he hung up, Arthur felt a strange mix of hope and sadness. If David was truly Theodore, he would have his son back. But at what cost? Destroying the family the boy knew, bringing the trauma of abandonment back into his life. For the first time, Arthur wondered if there was a path where everyone could win, instead of losing. Across town, Chloe was wondering the same thing as she watched David sleep peacefully, oblivious to the storm brewing around him. The lab Chloe had chosen was in a discreet building in the heart of the city. It was a renowned genetics center, specializing in paternity and genealogy tests. The waiting room, decorated in neutral tones, was empty at that early hour, except for Arthur, who had arrived 20 minutes early. He watched the door anxiously, checking his watch for the 10th time. Over the last few days, he had slept little, consumed by the possibility of finally confirming what his heart already knew. The evidence Marcus had gathered was convincing. Partial images of Serena abandoning something in Terminal 1, the coincidence of times, the case details fitting together like pieces of a grim puzzle. Chloe had gone silent when she saw the evidence. Her face had paled, but she held her composure, as if she were already preparing for the worst. The door opened and she entered, holding David by the hand. The boy was wearing a blue t-shirt with airplane prints, and his hair was combed to the side, highlighting his intensely blue eyes. Seeing Arthur, he smiled shyly. "Hi," David said with a child's simplicity, half hiding behind his mother's legs. "Hi, David," Arthur replied, his voice thick with emotion. Chloe had explained to her son that they needed to get a special test because a doctor wanted to study how strong and healthy he was, a white lie to protect him from a truth neither of them yet knew. "This is Mr. Arthur," Chloe introduced, keeping her voice steady. "He's going to do the test too." David looked at Arthur with childish curiosity. "Are you afraid of needles?" he asked seriously. Arthur felt a smile form involuntarily. "A little. Are you?" "Just a teeny tiny bit." David showed a minuscule space between his thumb and index finger. "But Mommy says brave boys can be scared, as long as they face it anyway." Those simple words hit Arthur like a punch. It was exactly what he used to tell Theodore when he needed a shot. "Your mother is very wise," he replied, looking at Chloe with a new respect. The lab technician called them in. The procedure was quick and painless, just a saliva swab. David treated the process like an adventure, asking questions about the tiny bugs that live in our mouths and why scientists wanted to meet them. Afterward, Arthur approached Chloe. "How long until we get the result?" 3 days, she replied, adjusting David's backpack on her shoulder. "I asked for maximum priority." "Thank you for doing this," Arthur said in a low voice. "I know how hard it is." Chloe just nodded, unable to articulate the storm of emotions consuming her. In those days, she had swung between anger, fear, acceptance, and, surprisingly, a growing compassion for Arthur. Something in the way he looked at David, with that mixture of hope and pain, resonated deeply with her. "Can we get ice cream, Mommy, as a prize for being brave?" David tugged on her hand, interrupting the moment. "Sure, my love. Can Mr. Arthur come too?" the boy asked, surprising both adults. He was brave too. Chloe hesitated, looking at Arthur with uncertainty. Part of her wanted to keep David away from him, to protect him from a bond that could be devastating if the test confirmed her suspicions. Another part recognized his right to know his son, even if they didn't yet know the full truth. "If your mother says so," Arthur replied diplomatically, leaving the decision to her. After a moment of hesitation, Chloe nodded. "There's a good ice cream shop nearby." The three of them walked side by side down the sunny sidewalk. To any observer, they would look like a typical family: a father, a mother, and a son enjoying a Saturday morning. The irony was not lost on Chloe. At the ice cream shop, David chose chocolate with marshmallow topping, creating an adorable mess around his mouth. Arthur watched him, fascinated, absorbing every expression, every gesture, as if trying to reclaim 3 lost years in a matter of minutes. "Mommy says you have big hotels," David commented between spoonfuls. "With swimming pools and everything?" "Yes, I do," Arthur replied, surprised by the question. "I can swim there one day. I'm learning to swim without a floaty." Chloe quickly intervened. "David, we don't invite ourselves places." "It's okay," Arthur smiled. "I would be happy to have you at any of my hotels. In fact, we have one here in New York, with an incredible kids' pool with slides and fountains." David's eyes lit up. "Wow! Can we go, Mommy?" "Please, no." Chloe's heart ached. She was losing control of the situation quickly. The barrier she had tried to maintain between David and Arthur was dissolving before her eyes. "We'll see, honey. Now finish your ice cream. We need to go pick up Grandma from physical therapy." David obeyed, but continued to ask Arthur questions about hotels, airplanes, and other countries. There was a natural connection between them, a rapport that Chloe couldn't deny. With every passing minute, it became harder to ignore the possibility that David was truly that man's biological son. When they said their goodbyes, David extended his hand to Arthur with adult seriousness. "It was nice to meet you, Mr. Arthur." Arthur gently shook his small hand, swallowing the lump in his throat. "It was an even greater pleasure to meet you, David." As he watched the mother and son walk away hand in hand, Arthur felt a growing certainty. Regardless of what the test showed, his life would never be the same. The 3 days of waiting were the longest of both their lives. Chloe immersed herself in work, picking up extra flights to keep her mind busy. When she was home, she hugged David tighter, as if she feared he might disappear at any moment. Arthur, for his part, channeled his insomnia into action. With the help of his lawyers, he prepared several legal scenarios, all prioritizing David's well-being. In none of them did he consider tearing the child away from Chloe. The more he thought about the situation, the clearer it became that the solution was not in courtrooms or custody battles, but in something much more complex: rebuilding a family from the fragments left by Serena's cruelty. On the eve of the results, Marcus brought the final piece of news. Serena had been located in Dubai, living luxuriously with an oil magnate. The authorities had already been contacted, and an extradition request was in process. She would face serious charges of child abandonment and falsification of a police report. When the email from the lab finally arrived, Arthur was in his office. With trembling hands, he opened the attachment. The words jumped off the screen. Paternity probability, 99.99%. It was true. David was Theodore. His son was alive. The emotion caused him to collapse into his chair. Years of grief, rage, and despair culminated in that moment of absolute clarity. Tears streamed freely down his face as he repeated in an incredulous whisper, "He's alive. My son is alive." His phone rang. It was Chloe. "Did you see it?" Her voice was broken. "Yes," was all he could say. "We need to talk, in person." "Of course. Where?" "At my house. Tonight, after David is asleep, at 9. After hanging up, Arthur remained motionless for long minutes. He had found his son, but now he faced an even greater challenge. How could he be a father without destroying the life that Theodore, no, David, had built with Chloe? Chloe's small apartment was exactly as Arthur had imagined it. modest, but impeccably neat and welcoming. Photos of David decorated the walls, telling the story of a happy childhood despite financial limitations. Chloe greeted him with red eyes, as if she had been crying for hours. She offered him coffee, which he accepted more out of politeness than desire. "Is he asleep?" Arthur asked, sitting on the couch in the small living room. "Yes, nothing wakes him after story time." She smiled sadly, sitting across from him. "So? It's true, it's true." Silence weighed between them, heavy with unspoken implications. "What happens now?" Chloe finally asked, her voice trembling. Arthur took a deep breath. "Before I answer that, I want to show you something." He opened his briefcase and took out some documents. "These are the results of the full investigation into Serena and Theodore's abandonment. We have enough evidence to convict her. She's already been located, and she will soon face justice." Chloe examined the photos and reports, horror growing on her face. How could anyone do that to their own child? "Serena never truly loved him," Arthur said bitterly. "He was just an accessory, a means to keep me tied to her. When she decided to leave with her lover, Theodore became an obstacle. But to abandon him like that?" Chloe shuddered. "She could have just left custody to you." "That wouldn't have hurt enough," Arthur explained, old pain resurfacing. "She knew how much I loved our son. Making him disappear, letting me believe he was dead, was the perfect revenge for me, the having discovered her betrayals." Chloe shook her head, unable to comprehend such cruelty. "And what about us? What are your plans?" Arthur placed another document on the table. "This is a shared custody agreement, drafted by the best family law attorneys. It stipulates that David will continue to live with you, maintaining his current routine. I would have regular visitation rights, participate in major decisions about education and health, and contribute financially to his well-being." Chloe examined the document, stunned. "You're not going to fight for full custody?" "No." The answer was firm. "David is 5 years old. You are the only mother he knows. Tearing him away from you would be traumatic and cruel. I will not repeat the mistakes others made with him." Silent tears rolled down Chloe's face. "Thank you," she whispered. "I was afraid you would use your power and money to take him from me." "I could," Arthur completed softly. "But what kind of father would that make me? What lesson would I be teaching my son?" He stood up, walking to the photo wall. He examined each one. David learning to walk, blowing out candles, playing at the beach, always with Chloe by his side, radiant with love. "You gave him what I couldn't in those years," Arthur continued, his voice thick with emotion. "A safe home, unconditional love, happy memories. I can never thank you enough for that." Chloe also stood, approaching him. "What will we tell him? When?" "When you think he's ready," Arthur replied. "We can start slowly. Me as a family friend, someone who cares about you. In time, when he's comfortable with me, we'll tell him the truth, adapted for his age, without details about the abandonment, without traumatizing him." "And what about her? Serena? What if one day he wants to meet her? When he's older, if he wants to, we won't stop him. But for now, it's better to protect him from that truth." Chloe nodded, recognizing the wisdom in that approach. They stood next to each other, looking at the photos in silence, each absorbed in their own thoughts. "Can I see him?" Arthur asked softly. "Just look at him while he sleeps." Chloe hesitated for only a second before nodding. "This way." She led him down the narrow hallway to a small room painted light blue. Toy airplanes hung from the ceiling, and a star-shaped lamp projected constellations onto the walls. David was sleeping soundly, hugging a well-loved teddy bear. Arthur approached silently, watching his son with reverence, the blonde hair spread across the pillow, the delicate hands, the chest rising and falling in calm breaths. Alive. Safe. Loved. A tear escaped, falling silently. He felt Chloe's hand gently touch his arm, offering comfort. "He has your forehead," she whispered, "and your chin. How did I not notice it before?" "Thank you for letting me see him," Arthur replied, reluctantly pulling away. Back in the living room, there was a new atmosphere between them. No longer adversaries, but allies united by a love for one child. "There's one last thing I'd like to propose," Arthur said. "It's about your mother, Mrs. Evans." Chloe frowned, confused. "I have contacts with the best Alzheimer's specialists in the country. I'd like to offer her treatment at a specialized clinic, with the most advanced care available." Chloe tensed up. "I don't need your charity, Arthur." "It's not charity," he replied calmly. "It's gratitude. She's my son's grandmother now, part of the family that cared for him when I couldn't. Besides, David loves her. Seeing his grandma receive the best care will only benefit him." Chloe thought for a moment, torn between pride and the practical recognition that her mother deserved the best possible treatment. "I'll think about it," she finally replied. "That's all I ask." As Arthur was getting ready to leave, Chloe stopped him with a final question. "How are we going to make this work? We're so different. We live in completely separate worlds." Arthur smiled slightly. "Maybe that's exactly why it will work. David will get the best of both worlds. Your integrity, your simplicity, and your unconditional love. And my resources to ensure he has every opportunity possible. We're not so different in what really matters. We both love him more than ourselves." The words hung between them, heavy with truth. Chloe nodded slowly, allowing herself, for the first time, to glimpse a future where she wouldn't have to face everything alone. 6 months passed quickly. The transition was smoother than either of them could have expected. Arthur became a constant presence in David's life, first as Mom's special friend, then as a father figure. Trips to the park, afternoons swimming at the hotels, weekend outings carefully planned. Mrs. Evans received treatment at the country's best neurology clinic. Though her Alzheimer's was irreversible, her quality of life improved significantly. On good days, she would call Arthur that handsome young man who makes my daughter smile. Because yes, Chloe was smiling again. The shared burden had become lighter. Arthur's companionship, initially tense, had gradually transformed into friendship, then into something deeper that neither was ready to name. Serena was extradited and faced trial. The evidence was irrefutable. Sentenced to 8 years for child abandonment, false statements, and other crimes, she was serving her sentence in a maximum security prison. David knew nothing about her. That truth would be kept safe until he was old enough to understand it. One sunny Sunday afternoon, the three of them were in the yard of the new house Chloe had accepted as a gift for David. A spacious, airy house in the same neighborhood, allowing the boy to keep his school and friends. Arthur was pushing David on the swing while Chloe prepared lemonade. "Higher, Uncle Arthur," David shouted, laughing. He still called him Uncle, even though he already knew, through carefully guided conversations, that Arthur was his other dad. He had accepted the news with the simplicity of children. "So I have 2 houses and 2 rooms full of toys. Awesome!" The complexity would come later, with age. But for now, his innocence was a gift they all fiercely protected. Chloe watched the two from the patio, her heart overflowing with an emotion she could no longer deny. Arthur caught her gaze and smiled. That smile that in recent months had started to make her heart beat faster in a way she never expected. Later, with David asleep after a day of playing, they sat on the patio, sharing a bottle of wine. "He has to go to the airport tomorrow," Chloe commented. "He wants to watch the planes take off." "The airport," Arthur repeated thoughtfully. "Where everything began, and ended and began again. Life is strange, isn't it?" She looked at the stars. 3 years ago, if someone had told me I'd be sitting here, co-parenting my son with a billionaire I met by chance. And if someone had told me I'd find my lost son in the arms of the strongest, most decent woman I'd ever met, Arthur finished, his eyes meeting hers with intensity. The silence that followed was charged with unspoken possibilities. I hear you, Chloe began tentatively. I know, he replied softly. I feel it too, but there's no rush. We have time, a whole lifetime ahead of us. She smiled, letting her hand find his on the table. It was a beginning, delicate, cautious, but full of promise. In the next room, David slept peacefully, oblivious to the miracle his existence represented. A child who, abandoned in the shadows of an airport, found not just one mother, but an entire family. An imperfect family, rebuilt from loss and pain, but strengthened by the purest love of all. The kind that chooses to love despite the scars. The road ahead would be long, with challenges yet to come. But tonight, under the stars, 3 hearts beat in sync, finally on the right flight toward the most beautiful destination of all. A home. A real home. Thank you for reading. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more great stories.